Hi, how you doing? Well, it's another beautiful day as always, though it's cold. And today I'd like to talk about a few things. First, I had a question, and that question was, what do our souls have to do with experience? And basically, your souls are the repository of all your experience, but they have absolutely nothing to do with the experiencer. Okay? So the you that you think you are, is the experiencer. That's the person who is experiencing things. Okay? But the soul is also receiving experiences, but it has nothing to do with the you that you think you are. Okay? The soul is divine. It has no communication with the mind as such. And so that's basically the way it is. All right. Anyway, today I want to talk about losing. Now, why is losing important? Well, for one thing, you can't really win in the game of enlightenment without losing. I'm not. You can't really win the game of enlightenment, but I'm using these terms to let you know what exactly it is. Okay. And what it is it's you have to lose in order to ascend. Okay? And you have to lose yourself. That's it. Now, a lot of people are concerned with winning, and winning is so important. Blah, 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 blah. Okay? But it's losing that's really important, not winning. Maybe the reason I woke up is because I had some losses, and I had to give up some things. Okay? Because of those losses. Okay? In 2008, my stock portfolio went. So that's the way it is. All right. And it's an unfortunate world that we live in. Losing happens. Okay. So, in order to awaken, we need to lose the self. Okay. And everything that goes with it, the emotions, the thoughts, the neuroses, everything else that is involved in the self. Okay? And we can do this without actually losing anything by accepting. Okay? And I've touched about accepting before on here. Basically, you need to excise the part of yourself that is attached to your money, that is attached to your house, your car, your wife, your kids, and everything else in your life. Okay? That is the problem. Okay? This attachment. Okay? So that is where it is. Okay? And it's not necessarily the house or the cars or the wife or the kids or anything else in the physical world that is the problem. The problem is the attachments and thinking you're a person. So, what that means is we need to accept what is. Okay? That's the first step. Accepting what comes and allowing it without trying to fight against it, without trying to jimmy it and try and make it work some other way. We have to accept it. Okay? That is the first step. And you have to accept that you are not a person. Yes, you have a veneer of personhood over you, but that's not who you are. Now, I know we all hate losing. It's terrible, isn't it? But it's part of life. And in a way, it's really good because losing allows you to win. I know that sounds crazy, doesn't it? But that's the way it is. Okay? And we have to lose the attachments. Okay? Not that awakening is a game or that you have to win it or anything like that, but generally speaking, that's the way it is. Okay? So, that's what we need to do. And we can start with the small things, the little things. How you want your coffee. You're attached to how you want your coffee, aren't you? Yes, of course you are. And that's just the way it is. Okay? And there's nothing we can do about that, but, attachment. Okay? Accept it. Accept that life is not going to turn out the way you want. Life is not going to give you your coffee the way you want it every single time. That's just not the way life is. And as long as you cling to this idea that, yes, I can have whatever I want whenever I want it, and it's not just coffee, it's a lot of other things, okay? Then you're going to suffer, okay? And I don't want anyone to suffer, but that's just the way it is. Now, in order to lose the attachments that you're suffering from and the illusions, okay, we have to accept, okay? Now, I know it's hard to accept things the way they are. It's much easier to say, oh, no, it's not like that. That's the way it is, okay? But we have to do the hard work in order to awaken, okay? So, how do we go about this? Well, first of all, get into meditation, okay? Try to see yourself from a point of view other than yourself, okay? And we do this from the meditative state. We do this from the now, okay? And that is where it's at, okay? I know it's hard. It's hard sometimes to meditate. It's hard sometimes to get into the now. But that's where you need to be if you want to accept what is. You can't accept what is when you're in the trap because you don't know it's a trap. You can only see that it's a trap once you go into the now. Okay? Because you can't really see what is in the trap. I know that sounds ridiculous, but it's the way it is. I mean, if you fall in a hole in the forest, you can see that you're in a hole, right? And so one would assume, well, I can see that I'm in a trap, but you can't. Okay? That's the way it is. So getting into your body's energy, getting into your chi, okay? Which is not that difficult, okay? Experiencing your own power. You have the power of your body, okay? And when you experience that chi, your thinking stops and you go into the now, okay? Or breathing, okay? Or any other meditation you'd like to try, like, for instance, mantra meditation, okay? Or yoga. It doesn't really matter. The point is we're putting all of our attention into one thing. And once we do that, then the thoughts get shut out, okay? That's just the way the human being is, okay? So, that's the first step. And we need to accept that we have these traps, that we're in these traps. We need to realize that we're in a trap made by society, okay? And that once we realize that, then we can escape the trap. We can get out of it, okay? I know this is hard, but it must be done. If you're on the spiritual pathway, I hope you are, you have to accept in order to grow. Spiritual growth is so important. I saw a thing the other day about people putting Happy New Year's wishes in Times Square, and one woman wished for spiritual growth, and I hope she gets it. But anyway, in order to get spiritual growth, we must accept what is. Okay? And what is that you're not a person. You look like a person, okay? But you're not a person. You are a soul, or consciousness, if you prefer. It doesn't really matter which one. The soul is the seat of your consciousness. That is who you are. We don't know if there's a God. We don't know if there's a soul. We don't know anything, okay? Because we can't know it. But I like the word soul because everyone knows what it means. Now, so, try and accept losing. No matter what happens, you're going to lose. Even if you are Bezos or Musk or Zuckerberg or Gates, losing is going to happen. Okay? That's just the way it is. They've all been divorced, haven't they? That's losing. Okay? And more losing will happen. That's just the way life is. And if we don't accept the loss, if we don't allow it to be, it's going to come back and bite us. And that is the most important thing to look at in your life. What are you holding back? What are you not accepting? I know it's hard to try and look at that, but it's important. So try and accept what is. Try and look at your life when you're in the now, when you're in the meditation and you feel the flow begin, and you know when that is. Then you can look at your life and see what you're not accepting. Okay? And it's up to you if you want to do anything about that. One assumes you do want to do something about it. Okay? By letting it go. Accepting. The loss that you had when somebody died, the loss that you had when your baby died, maybe, or whatever it was bad. Okay? And that loss is still with you. Okay? And it's part of your awakening. Which everything is part of your awakening. Okay? No question about that. So try and accept it. If you're upset, if you're unhappy, there's a reason for it. It's not just fate, okay? It's because you haven't accepted the world as it is. You have made the world into what you want it to be, okay? And that doesn't work. It doesn't make you happy. So try and find out what it is you've done. Try and find out what is going on, okay? And the way to do that is from the now. When you're in the now, when you're in the meditation, thoughts are going to come up, okay? And you need to look at that thought. Put a little bit of awareness. You have the awareness because you're in the now. That's when you have the most awareness. Try to put the awareness into whatever that thought is, okay? I know that sounds something that you can't do hard, but you'll see if you just not think, but look. This is all very tricky, but look at what it is. And the more you look, the more you're inquiring into yourself, which means yourself is going to answer it. That's the way it is, okay? You can't think about your life because that's just another trap. I know it's hard, to not think about your life. That's what we do all day, don't we? But it's important to just look, okay? Just look. And once you have looked, then you will see, if you're in the now, you will see what is going on with you. I know I've said all this before, but I just felt it was important enough to mention it. So, and what's going on with you is you're attached, okay? You're holding on to things, okay? That's the way it is. And holding these things isn't helping you. It's not doing anything for you. Okay? I know we think it is. We think that it's mine. Okay? And that's one of the reasons that we think it. Okay? Because of possession. We're trying to possess the world. We're trying to possess everything else. And that possession is leaking out of you, which is why you're trying to possess your emotions or your illness or your pain or your fear. Well, those things can't really be possessed, which is why you have to let them go. Okay? Now, if you're afraid, there's an easy way to look at that. Separation. You think you're separate from God. That's what you think. You think that because, a variety of reasons, but that is where you're at. Okay? But the fact is, what is you're not separate from God because God is with you. Your soul, okay, or the spark that makes you alive, whatever you want to call it, is a part of God. So therefore, how could you be separate from God if you've got a part of Him with you? You can't. It's impossible. And that fear, once you realize and accept that that is what is, the fear is just going to dissolve. Okay? And the same thing with other things. Okay? Maybe you have an emotion that you don't want and it keeps coming back up. You have to accept it. Wholeheartedly accept the emotion. Wholeheartedly accept the event. The longer we fight against these events, the more they're going to keep coming back up. We must accept them. Accept what happened. Accept that it wasn't you. You're not the one that had that happen to them. Because you're not the same body. Maybe you're the same mind, but the memory of you isn't you. I know that's a hard one to get your head around, but it's important that you do. Okay? Whatever is bothering you in this life, there's a way around it through acceptance. Through going into the now and looking. Not trying to think about it, because as soon as you start thinking, you drop out of the now. That's the way it is. Okay? So just try and look at what is. Okay? And that's all there is to it. And in order to awaken, you have to start losing things. Okay? And that's just the way it is. You cannot win until you lose. The only way of winning is to awaken. Everything other way of winning doesn't get you anywhere. Okay? It's not going to make you happy. But we still chase after it because we think it will. But we're wrong. Just like you think your thoughts are right, you think, but you're wrong. They're not. Anyway, so what we do and how we exist in this world, okay, is as players, okay? We're playing a role. As soon as you grow up a little bit, they say, what do you want to be? And you have to take on that role. Okay? That's not the real you. The real you is the soul. And that role that you're playing is meaningless. I'm sure you felt the meaninglessness of it. Of course you have. No matter how fulfilling your role is, let's say you're a teacher, and you're fulfilled by teaching the kids and making their world better, right? I mean, that's what it is, right? But somehow it doesn't make you happy. Okay? And the reason that is it's you're playing a role. You're following a guideline set out by the world. Okay? And that guideline says you have to behave in a certain way in order to keep being you. I know it's a crazy thing, isn't it? So, we need to accept that you're not you. And you need to lose your you-ness. The you that you think you are needs to be lost. That's what the way it is. In order to awaken, in order to have freedom, okay, we need to lose our you-ness, okay, by accepting our soulness. I know it's really hard to do that, okay? It's something that will happen over time, slowly, gradually, okay, by looking at your life, okay? And I mean, that is what is. And we have to accept the isness of it. Everything we don't accept the isness of is going to come back and bite us. That is the way it is. If you didn't get whatever you wanted, okay, then you're going to be upset. You're going to be unhappy. And that unhappiness is going to spread out, okay? That's just the way it is. Maybe you wanted a job in publishing. Maybe you wanted to go to college and no one would accept you, okay? Because maybe your grades weren't the best, or maybe a lot of things, okay? And now you're upset. You're unhappy because you have to work at McDonald's or whatever it is, okay? Right? If you can just accept that this role you're trying to become is meaningless. It's a meaningless role, and it's not you. Okay? Then it won't matter. It won't matter whether you got the job or didn't get the job. It won't matter whether you went to college and learned how to be that role. Okay? I know it's hard to look at things the way that they are. Okay? We'd much rather look at things the way we want them to be. That's just the way it is. But by accepting everything the way it is, we can grow. And that's really what life's all about, is growing. If you can't grow, then you're going to decay and die. That is the way it is. Like the shark who must keep moving in order to stay alive. Okay? You must keep growing in order to awaken. Okay? And if you stop growing, if you calcify, which so many people do, okay? You get to a certain age and you're like, that's it for me. You stop trying to learn things. You stop being curious. Okay? That's just the way it is. And no matter how old you are, you can still continue growing by accepting. This is how powerful the acceptance is. So, there's nothing wrong with playing a role. There's nothing wrong with being a doctor or a policeman or a janitor or whatever it is. Okay? But what is wrong is not accepting that you're not going to be that. Not accepting that you're going to be that. Okay? If you wanted to be a race car driver and you couldn't because your reflexes weren't fast enough or whatever it is, and now you're a janitor at a high school or whatever, just to make the money to provide for yourself. And you're unhappy in that job because it's not the role you wanted. You wanted a specific role, but you can't have for whatever reason. Okay? And that unhappiness is part of your suffering. And it's not going to stop. You may never not be a janitor. Okay? That's a role that you maybe are forced to play. Yeah, you can quit your job and try to find a different role. But you know what? It doesn't matter because the roles don't mean anything. They are meaningless. And as long as we cling to this role, okay, which we do. We cling to, I'm a doctor, I'm a lawyer, I'm a this, I'm a that. Because we're seeking for identity. That is what it's all about. We are seeking identity. Just having a name isn't enough. Just having a location where you were born and what you did as you grew up, all that stuff's great and everything, but it's not enough. Not enough for the ego. The ego wants more out of you. And it gets that by making you play a role, a meaningless role. Okay? That's the way it is. Okay? Because the ego wants identity. Okay? If you go to a party and you say your name is such and such, and you were born in such and such, the next thing they're going to say is, what do you do? What's your role? Because they want to identify you. And they identify you by knowing your role. Okay? Just like you or your ego wants that identity. Okay? So does everyone else. Because then they can pigeonhole you. Oh, he's a this, he's a that. I know, sounds crazy, doesn't it? But that's what we do. All this stuff is just part of what society wants from you. Okay? And they want identity. And the ego wants identity too. So society and the ego are one. Okay? They want the same thing. In a way. This ego also wants you to suffer if you can't win. And that's just the way it is. But by losing something, okay, which we all hate to lose things, we can win. I know we're not trying to win anything, okay? But when you awaken, you have something that is precious. You know that you're a soul. And that's something that is so wonderful. And just knowing it, it can make your life like way better. Okay? So we need to stop. You don't need to do anything. But if you wish to awaken, okay, try to see the meaninglessness of the role that you're playing. When somebody asks me who I am, I say I'm nobody. Okay? Because that's who I am. I don't have a role. I don't use my name. I am nobody. I am nothing. And as nothing, I am everything. Okay? Actually, I'm retired, so that's the label, and that's the role too. But the point is, this identity, which you want as the ego, okay, you think you are the thing in control. You think you are this ego. And the only problem is that's not who you are. You are a soul. And this role you're playing, however wonderful it may be, and I'm not saying it's not wonderful, okay? It's not you. And the longer you proliferate this not you-ness, the more unhappy you're going to be. I'm not saying quit your job or anything like that. You have to, you don't have to do anything, but you could realize that the role isn't you. You could realize that the you isn't you either. Okay? And when you have realized that, and you can go into the now and look at your life, which is the only place you can do it in, then you can get that freedom that you want. And it's all a gradual process. Most people don't wake up overnight. I did after 60 years of suffering. Okay? If you suffer enough, then eventually you will wake up. It may be on your deathbed. And what I wanted to do when I woke up is share. And that's what I'm doing now. So, try and remember who you really are. Try and remember that this role you're playing isn't you. Okay? And the thoughts that are coming from your ego aren't you either. And neither are the emotions. We incorporate all this into our identity. She's flighty. She's emotional. She's this. She's that. Okay? And that becomes part of our identity. And that identity is bad for you because it's going to cause more suffering. So, clock on the wall is telling me it's time to go. I love you all because you're me. And you're everything else too. These trees behind me, even though they're dormant in the winter and coated with ice, are me too. Okay? As is everything in this universe. You cannot separate yourself out from the universe because the universe is who you are. And I love you because you are the universe, and I love the universe. And I love everyone who is the universe, which is everyone. Okay? And you can too. There's no reason not to. Just accept. All right, well, if you have any comments or questions about anything I'm saying, please comment and share. Okay? And have a great life. All right.